Hey everyone, welcome to the inaugural edition of the Stealth Lounge. This is a series where I basically play a stealth game and I talk about it. I wouldn't necessarily call it a review series per se, this is more like the ramblings of a bored gaming layman. So if this is not your thing, then I highly suggest you learn the choreography of bringing your cursor over to that red X in the upper right hand corner. So let me address the elephant in the room. If you haven't noticed by now, I am beginning this series with Splinter Cell Double Agent. This is the PlayStation 3 version. Now, I have more to emphasize on the use of the word version in that statement, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I love the Splinter Cell games. In fact, I love any stealth game in general, hence why we're doing the Stealth Lounge. There's just something about the concept of beating a game with minimal contact with the enemies that really stands out to me more than other game genres. I love it. If your game has this as a foundation, then I'm easy to please. Usually when someone uses the term stealth game, chances are they are referring to either the Splinter Cell series or the Metal Gear Solid series. Now I love and appreciate both franchises in very different ways. But this is Splinter Cell we're talking about here, so Solid Snake is going to have to sit this one out. Maybe we'll get to him in a future episode, if we can make it out of this one alive. So Double Agent is the fourth entry in the series, and is also the beginning of what I call the unholy trilogy of the series. Because this is where Ubisoft really started to take the franchise in a very awkward direction. And I'm hoping to cover the other two preceding titles to this one eventually. I only remember playing this version of the game once, and that was when it launched back in 2007, just a few months after the PlayStation 3 launched. First, let's update the game since I'm reinstalling it for the first time. Wait, no patches? None? Uh-oh. Oh, gosh. That kind of scares me, folks. This is like walking into a minefield where the mines are all disabled, but the field is also on fire. The gameplay could get compromised. But hey, who knows? Maybe Ubisoft has been working on a patch this whole time. Game's only 14 years old. Sometimes bugs and glitches take more than 14 years to fix. So, into the burning minefield we go, I guess. I should also point out that this game has no trophies either. I only point this out because Metal Gear Solid 4 also came out a year later, and despite that game also originally didn't have trophies since they were relatively new at the time, they did add trophies in eventually almost 10 years later. You know, for the shit show that Konami is today, we can at least say they outclassed Ubisoft in that specific area. So way to support your game, Ubisoft. I can't imagine why we haven't had a new Splinter Cell title in almost 10 years.
Guys, we're going to silent mode.
Oh, and you might have also noticed that I have the brightness setting set to max, because if I don't, then I have about this much of a viewing experience. Yeah, can you see that? I can. Splinter Cell has always been known for really utilizing shadows more than most other stealth games, and that's great for gameplay, but this here is a cutscene. I kind of like to know and see what's going on before I just go in blind, but I also understand that this differs for everybody, so luckily, even though I recorded at max brightness, I can adjust this back to normal in editing. So,
Are you scared? Why? Should I be? Huh.
okay, right off the bat, I hate this guy. But you know what? I also love his snarky attitude. You know why? Because it means he's probably gonna die. This is a new character that's nameless, who's also trying to outclass the main character. Those types never make it past the first chapter. Ever. So we jump out of the shuttle, and already we're shown something new. Swimming.
What are we doing here?
Nice. Now that's what I want to see. Sam Fisher taking on new feats. Getting his merman on. Wait a second. Where's his oxygen mask? Hell, where's his oxygen tank?
You can count on us, sir.
Don't tell me we're swimming in sub-zero water oxygenless. And what about the other guy? He had no face covering whatsoever at the beginning. So is he swimming barefaced? Whatever. I didn't realize this until I actually started sneaking around solo, but this version has eliminated the stealth and noise meters, replacing them with just the light on Sam's back that changes to green when you're in shadow and yellow when you're exposed. Nothing for sound. The previous gen version of Double Agent kept these features intact though, so why aren't they here? I got a feeling this is just the beginning of the discrepancies between the two versions. So we're above ground 2 seconds, and already the new guy is telling me how slow I am.
I thought we were just here for observation.
There have been slight changes.
Lambert, what changes?
Customs have informed us of the arrival of several Islamic terrorists in Iceland. All the leads point at this facility.
If that's the case, Junior needs to be pulled out of the mission. He is not trained for this. He is a liability for both of us.
Impossible. We're in too deep. The mission must go on. Just
I have to agree with Sam on this one. This douchebag is a liability to both the mission and my patients. But whatever. So the only way to progress is through this fence, which is also coded in electrical current. So I cut the cable on the generator inside this building, while Humpty Dumpty just sits and stares while taunting me over the radio the whole time. Yeah, he's definitely dying soon. Mark my word. And finally, we get to go our separate ways. Good riddance. I get to work my magic and interrogate this guard for a security key code that then in turn opens this big gate, and...
Wait, the way up front is now clear. This will be much quicker. Let me go and check.
I repeat, your role is to cover Sam. Hold your position.
John!
John, answer me. Sam, jump through the vent before it closes again.
What do we do about John?
All we can do is pray that he doesn't blow your cover.
Gee, who could have expected Brainiac over there to be so obliviously impatient besides all of us? I told you this would happen, and Lambert didn't listen, so now Lambert's in timeout. This is a good time for what's-his-name to learn some self-reliance. Or not. See, I told you he wouldn't last long. Not even 3/4 into his first mission. What an idiot.
He did not break.
No, but he died and this was totally avoidable.
So now I'm suddenly tasked with randomly having to disarm a missile before it launches. Only, I can't actually disarm it because it has a failsafe. I can hack it so that it explodes on sight, killing the engineers instead of its intended targets, so that's what we do. The main problem is extracting, because that failsafe gives me a 60-second time frame to flee the scene. This is where something clicked that I think the developers were just throwing shit in to make this mission longer than it needed to be. Because once I extract, the transition between extraction and boarding the chopper is just so non-conforming. I mean, look at this.
Sam?
Didn't that feel rather random?
What's going on, Lambert?
Sam's not even wearing the same sneaking suit he wore at the beginning.
Why?
That's because they used the same cutscene in the PlayStation 2 version, and that transition was a lot more convenient, and it's not just because it maintained consistency with Sam's wardrobe. Not only was that mission more stable, and the partner was more believable and more arguably likable, but the hype to the cutscene was natural, because Lambert abruptly aborts the mission. Whereas here, they threw in a random missile with a cocky douche of a partner who gets his ass killed. I'll prove it. Here's the transition from the PlayStation 2 version.
Done. I got info on the buyers. Now I'm going after Kadir.
No, you're not. Abort the mission.
What?
I said abort. You too, Hamza. You are to extract immediately.
The mission was to find the weapons. We haven't done that yet.
What's going on?
We have enough. I'm canceling your remaining objectives.
Like hell you are. I'm not going anywhere.
Sam, listen to me. We've got enough. Get out, now.
It's your call, Fisher. I'll stay if you do.
Listen carefully, both of you. I have other Splinter cells on standby, and I just activated them. Their mission is to destroy the foundry and everything in it, so you better clear out.
You're testing my patience, Lambert.
Believe me, Sam, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have a good reason. Something's happened.
What?
It's your daughter. The chopper's on its way. Lambert out.
Beautiful. I remember first playing that.
What's going on?
The mission aborting abruptly. I kept thinking, what's going on? Then the cutscene happened and it all made sense. I don't know who orchestrated the mission layout in this version, but I think somebody should have been fired. So you board the chopper, and now Lambert gives you the unfortunate news that your daughter was killed in an accident. I'm sure this is going to get me some heat from the other Splinter Cell fanboys, but I gotta point this out. The biggest weakness in the Splinter Cell universe is its lore. Almost none of the main characters have been developed enough for you to even care if they make it into the sequels or not. Now, Sam's daughter Sarah was an off-screen secondary character with an exception to maybe one cutscene in the original game, so that means her development is even worse. This is a very big example of killing an assumed important character that no one gives a shit about. Despite the fact that she was mentioned in previous games, she never had development at all, and as a result, her sudden death really has no lasting impact. They could have said that Sam's sister, or mother, or some random long-distant relative died, and the impact would have been the exact same. This is troubling because now this game is riding her coattails, when she was never developed or utilized at all until this point. This is the equivalent of the Wizard of Oz killing off Toto. Sure, the dog is cute, but even without Toto, Dorothy still has the ruby slippers to get back home, so... okay? Sarah is Toto here, and now she's the central subject behind the core mission of Double Agent. This paints a terrible expectation for the rest of the game for me, but I'll keep going.
Is that all you got? Come on!
Okay, so now we're in prison, which they never really elaborate on why.
But because we needed him there.
Our stint here is being used as a setup into being recruited into the JBA, which we're told is a tribute domestic terrorist group in the name of John Brown, led by some wealthy revolutionary named Dufresne. And before you ask, no, despite the obvious reference to Andy Dufresne's escape tunnel here, this is not the same Dufresne from the Shawshank Redemption. Sorry to bust your Stephen King heart on everyone, but I'm certain there's no relation between that Dufresne and this one. But again, this is an example of the previous gen version outdoing the next gen upgrade. Not only is the escape plan so bare minimum in this version, but the chemistry between Fisher and Washington is so forced because of it. In the PlayStation 2 version, you're actually still developing trust from Jamie Washington here for him to invite you to his organization's HQ after you escape. And you also have to take baby steps into initiating the prison riot, such as starting a fight with another inmate, and grabbing a walkie-talkie before lights out. Killing the former will display your ruthless demeanor to Jamie Washington, which is good for gaining his trust. In this version, however, Washington is just randomly approaching you and telling you to open the prison cells while he goes and makes some noise. Literally, that's what he says.
Now here's the deal. I'm gonna start a little ruckus down this way. While I'm doing that, you go do the same thing over in Block A.
Where?
You know, the main tower block. Open the cell doors in there, and this place will really be rocking.
Great plan. That's pure competence right there, 101. I'm surprised the JBA still talks to this guy. I don't know about you, but I hate having half the work done for me in gaming. So we escape. Big surprise. We abduct a news chopper and we arrive at the JBA. Now the first two chapters were definitely lacking compared to the previous gen counterpart, but the HQ levels are really where this version of Double Agent shine, because this is where the feeling of risk is really emphasized. Restricted areas are off limits to you at all times. If you are seen in these areas at all, the game is over because you've blown your cover.
I see you. Now cut that out.
Whatever you're doing, it's not what I need you to do. We're through, Fisher.
Same goes for using gadgets supplied by Third Echelon, like the fingerprint scanner, or your keypad hacker. Speaking of hacking, I want to emphasize how much I miss game manuals. Those thick layered books were always a joy for me to flip through with each new game I got. They could be colorful, their descriptions of every button layout was always interesting, If I buy a used game that's old enough to have had one of these, I demand that it has the manual. It's a deal breaker with me if it doesn't. But in this game's case, I can see why manuals were starting to become a dying art. All you gotta do is look at the multiple paragraphs used to tell you how to use your hacking device. Just looking at this can make anyone feel intimidated. But in reality, I can sum up hacking in this game with just 3 bullet points. Activate the hacking process, wait for a number to freeze, press X. Voila! Easy. It always amazes me how they managed to squeeze 2 paragraphs out of those 3 bullet points. And bear in mind, you can also pick safes too. Now the email decryptor page is one I still to this day do not understand by the manual's testimony. Anyone who wants to translate this, feel free to post it in the comments. So you're assigned by Moss here to do the training course to prove you know how to crack a safe. And to also obtain the new high score in the firing range to show that you're a superior fighter compared to the others. And Lambert is assigning you to upload a Trojan into the JBA server, and also to bug their security antenna at the same time. You can also steal some medical data and some background information on other JBA members as an optional time killer when you have some time left after you finish the primary objectives. This time limit really puts you against the wall in these missions after this. The objectives become riskier, require more patience, and the risk factor just goes through the roof. I love it. This is how I imagine Ace Ventura feeling like when he was on his double agent outings. After finishing the primary objectives on time, Moss meets us and gives us your stereotypical I'm not impressed pep talk, and takes you to your first real test. You get to meet Dufresne for the first time, thus confirming again this is not the Stephen King Dufresne by a long stretch. And you're then ordered to taking the life of the pilot of that chopper that you abducted to escape from prison to join the JBA. But you're also ordered to spare him at the same time by the NSA. So, which do? Do you kill him, or do you spare him? Well, you don't want to make a bad first impression. I mean, I'm no terrorist expert, but I think they like ruthlessness. So I shoot the poor bastard without question. I gain trust in the JBA as a result, but I lose trust with the NSA as a result. This was the right choice for this mission, I think, because this is your first impression, and the boss is physically watching you as well. You have to justify your recruitment. So bam! Headshot. No question. I can understand maybe some unnecessary casualties after this point being questioned, but this to me is a no-brainer. So Dufresne finds my slaughtering of an innocent man to be, I guess, a good nudge in the right direction, and sends me out to capture a supertanker. Let's talk about the trust system in this game. The PlayStation 2 version only had one trust meter, with the NSA on one end and the JBA on the other end. In this version, there are 2 meters, with both sides having their own respective meter. So what's better, 1 meter or 2? Well, with the 1, you have to be really careful about the choices you make, because if the meter goes too far to one side, you risk going off the mission parameter, because now you have to communicate remotely with the disgruntled side to regain a tad bit of trust back so you can continue.
Get on a computer and talk with him, or he's going to pull you out.
The added spark here was that this communication line was in one location, and you had to get to it in a certain amount of time, or else the game was over.
Williams is a bit more sure of you now, too.
Here, with 2 meters, you're almost guaranteed to never have that happen. The mission would stay on course so long as you never blew your cover over it at HQ. So, I can see where having 2 has its advantages in that area, but on the same argument, it's also a disadvantage to the story, because the immersion of the risk of being a double spy is kind of ruined because of it. I think personally they should have stayed with the 1 meter, or at least made the 2 meters easier to deplete when objectives were failed, and harder to fill up when objectives were completed. I'd even go so far as to say that when trust is lost, that it only fills up at half the rate until you regain the trust you lost. This is the next-gen version after all. The technology was there, it's just a damn meter. But whatever, onto the supertanker.
Where's my equipment coming from?
You're asking too many questions.
Yeah, I get that a lot. Hey, we're swimming again. And once again, I can confirm this now, Sam still has no breathing supply that's connecting through his mouth. I board the super tanker, and this is the first real test for my playstyle of these games. Generally, I avoid as much contact with the enemy as possible, and any contact I do have, I tend to keep non-lethal. I have plenty of stealth gameplay footage on my channel to back this up. I'm a pacifist by nature, so that's how I approach these missions. But now I'm infiltrating a terrorist organization, so any lethal order that's defied is probably going to blow my cover. So when Moss orders me to take the lives of every single guard aboard this tanker, that really puts me at unease. But I can't blow my cover or make him think I'm too weak to see this mission through. So I kill them all. No question about it, I kill them all. The game humors my disposition after I make contact with Lambert, because Sam expresses his discontent and frustration over this.
Lambert, they're asking me to clean up the place.
I know.
This is the first time, in fact, that Sam shows discomfort in these games in regards to his objectives. So for this, at least, I call this worthwhile. This humanized Sam Fisher for me for the first time. It wasn't his ignored and underdeveloped daughter dying that did it. No, it was this. This right here did it. This humanized Sam Fisher.
Cannot blow your cover now.
Lambert, they're asking me to clean up the place.
Okay, so I have to take the captain out to seize control of the tanker. But the only way I can do it is from behind, because he's carrying this flare. So if he sees me coming, he'll drop his flare, and...
God.
I gotta say, this was a tense battle. In fact, I call this mission as a whole the first joyride I had in this version of the game. So thumbs up for this mission. That's what, 1 out of 3 so far? This is probably my favorite mission in the game, because the actual stealth formula this version tries to implement gets to really justify itself at length. This is where this double agent gets to prove its identity as a stealth game. And I think it does. If it didn't, I probably wouldn't even be making this video. There's no compromise here. There's no take no prisoners pretext or anything that hinders your style. In fact, I'd say this mission is perfectly compatible with my style. So that's just the cherry on top. So I'm landing a chopper now? I think I want my 90-day evaluation moved to today, boss. The pilot's dead. Just add his salary to mine. It'll be like nothing ever happened. So Emil walks off. To contemplate my offer, I hope. And I'm contacted by another NSA double spy requesting me to record the meeting that Emil flew here for. This is really where you're reminded of what you're playing. Phew, I was getting worried there. Uh-oh. What the hell happened to my lockpick? It's automated now? I didn't realize this, but I apparently unlocked this version of this gadget in the previous mission. What the hell? Why would they want to take that out? I mean, it's a minor thing, but why have me go through the trouble in the early portions but disregard it just when the gameplay was getting good? The lockpick was half of what made inaccessible sections fun to infiltrate. Now I'm just watching Sam's elbows spasm as he gets impatient as if I'm actually doing all the work. I can understand the automation at HQ, where you're pressed for time, but this is the field, and I'm in no rush here. Ever hear the story about the race between the rabbit and the turtle? Well, spoiler alert, the turtle wins, every time. So give me my damn lockpicks back, you piece of sh**. So I access the control box for this crane I can use to access the exterior of the meeting room. Apparently, lighting doesn't matter here because I'm still green. Be nice if I could flip the bird here at these folks on behalf of the oppressed majority they've probably fucked over.
Lowering the price. I want you to come down by 200 million. I'll come down 10 million. I am not haggling with you. I'll come down 100 and you come up 100. I am being generous.
Fisher, heads up!
Okay, what did I just record? Why was this important? I'm playing cat and mouse with this chopper spotlight. Yes, I finally get to access the interiors. I love this. This is the Splinter Cell I want to see. I have to say, this is rather well guarded, even on the easy settings. I have a feeling the devs worked on this mission the hardest as far as the mission layout is concerned. Keep this up and I'll forgive the previous 3 chapters. I really like this mission, everyone. This is true stealth, and it retains the risk factor as well. However, the mindset quickly fades off when I look at the objective screen. And I'm not even going to go into how they threw 2 objectives that are the exact same thing, but set up in a way that if you fail one, that you succeed in the other. No, I'm specifically talking about the sample Red Mercury objective to be exact. This is the central weapon behind the JBA's motives. I won't go into this too much because they actually explain what Red Mercury actually is and what it does later. But the problem here is, despite its importance for the JBA's plans of government overthrow, it's probably the most ignored and undermined thing about the story as a whole.
I'm almost there.
That's all I'm going to say on it right now, but just give you a heads up right now, if you want the immersion of really feeling the threat of this Red Mercury bomb, you have to rely on the 6th generation console versions of this game. That's just a fact. We're just lucky that the actual stealth in this mission is just that good, in spite of the number of safes we have to crack.
The doctor is heading your way. He's a liability. We have new
No wonder the JBA bases their training course specifically on safes. It all makes sense now. Of course, now they have to ruin everything by telling me to assassinate someone. Whatever. Down you go. Oh hey guys, I was just hunting some snipes. I have to say, this is such a sucky ending to an otherwise great stealth level, but I guess I'll take it. I give this level an 8 out of 10 as far as stealth mission goes. The bank robbery and chaos theory is a true 10 out of 10 masterpiece. If your level can't compete with that, then odds are you're getting bumped at least 2 points. Did I mention these post-mission stat screens yet? I have to say, of all the places for a double spy to conduct a secret meeting, I think this is probably not even last on my list of locations. Any physical meeting is a no-go with me at HQ, but whatever. Okay, I realize that this is an in-game cutscene, so graphically it's rather silly, but this is just a conversation. I feel like this is a wasted opportunity for this system's hardware. I realize I keep bringing this up, and I promise from here on out I won't do it again, but this part really makes a stronger case for the PlayStation 2 version. This is a wasted effort in next-gen capability, and this conversation is so dull on top of that. There's no worry of being caught here, and I feel like with all the tech that's inside HQ, they would have thought to have put security out here. According to the manual, Emil has lost confidence in Moss as far as security protocols go, and he was his most trusted ally. So how does that not warrant a buff in security around the perimeter? This kills this version of the game for me, officially. I love the stealth in the previous mission, but this kills that mood for me right away. They couldn't be bothered to render a consistent cutscene in the beginning chapter, and they couldn't be bothered to suit the risk Sam is taking here for this secret meeting. This right here shows just how rushed this version of the game was. Lambert doesn't even have a role to play in the JBA here, like he does in the PlayStation 2 version. This version's storytelling is for kids. Or idiots. This scene right here really killed my immersion. Honestly, I loved the previous mission enough to slowly start feeling the heat, but that's gone now. They sacrificed something for this version for it to compromise this much of the storytelling. I almost feel like even the game wants nothing to do with itself. I want to know just what happened when this was developed, and just how much of the story was actually scrapped. Because nothing here is really adding up so far. If the story doesn't make sense, the mission layout makes it worse. And if the mission layout is perfect like in the previous chapter, then it gets shat on with endings like this one. I mean, I was supposed to stay in the spot that I started on, and they don't even bother to ask me why I'm in this room at the end. There's only one thing that can make me more pissed off right now. Yep, this right here. I'm pissed. This doesn't even add to the risk factor. It just gives new meaning to that damn countdown clock's purpose. This is slow, this is dull, this is boring. And don't even worry about this part here. That's misdirection. Focus on keeping this centered and you'll be fine. The slow pace here is just pure hell. I suggest anyone with anxiety issues, you're probably better off doing the primary objectives first. What's even worse is you can't even do a few, leave, then come back and do the rest later. No, because the counter starts at 0 every single session. So once you're here, you're stuck. What the hell is this? Okay, I totally did not see that coming. I was just sneaking around. I saw this window with an opening, so I went through it. Then I realized I was in the area that I met Lambert at, thus signifying that security here sucks. This only happens when I go back in, and it cancels all my other objectives. I wouldn't have cared so much if I didn't have the pilot body disposal as an objective left to do. Oh, not to mention that I don't remember this being a damn love story. So I reloaded my save from Emil's office where I hacked into a save to scan the Red Mercury blueprints. Oh my gosh, Emil, just move! Go forward, go back, turn around, go left, go right, I don't care. Just pick a consistent direction and move! And then dispose of the pilot's body before finally completing the mine assembly. Oh my gosh, my patience. I just don't have it here. Oh, and look who's back, with no kisses this time. Good. I always viewed Enrique as Sam projecting his lost daughter onto her, but now that I've seen this, I'm kinda lost. What does this story want to tell me? Does this game even know what it wants to say anymore at this point? This HQ mission was not so great. The mine assembly forcing itself to extend the mission time by being a slow process that does not allow you to stack assembled mines in multiple goes so you can span them out so that you can ensure your other objectives get done in a timely manner really rubbed me the wrong way. This is the second laziest mission in the game to date, second only to the intro mission that had absolutely nothing to do with the storyline at all. I don't want to appoint myself as a speaker on behalf of all Splinter Cell fans, but I think if ever you want to make us not enjoy the experience of a double spy mechanic, this right here is how you do it.
Rise and shine, lover boy.
Funny, you don't sound like Enrique.
Oh, for the love of... Well, at least we got some of the stealth action back. This actually isn't too bad of a map. Enrique assisting you by manipulating the ship's systems is a nice touch. This part here is the real challenge. This is probably the halfway point and where you really have to be sure of your skills as a stealth operative. The area is wide open, so not so many options for cover, and it's also entirely lit up, so no options for shadows either. Even with Enrique's help here, you really gotta grind hard to get through this area undetected. It took me a few tries. Boy, even the interiors at this portion are becoming a grind. This is where the lack of a sound meter really works at your disadvantage in this version of the game. I need to make it to the exterior balconies so that there I can zipline to the lower decks and plant the Red Mercury bomb. But that asshole there is making my route planning difficult because the two guards inside are in constant motion. I tend to avoid enemy contact as much as possible, but the game's forcing my hand here. I have to clean house if I'm getting past this point undetected, so I attach my sticky shockers to my rifle and do my thing. I'm not proud of this by any means. I think I probably could have figured out a better way of dealing with the situation if I had the patience, not to mention the perspective, to do so. I mean, look at all this. Everywhere I go, there's always an obstruction. I just wanted to get it over with, but at the very least, I did it non-lethal. She makes it sound like it's no big deal that these men are all gonna die, but after hearing this conversation in the previous HQ mission, I think she's just being passive-aggressive.
But we can test the detonator without killing all of those people.
I plant the bomb, hack its frequency for Lambert so that he can work on disabling its detonation, and I'm out. A bit of a frustrating mission stealth-wise, it really worked you into a corner at the halfway point, testing your limitations on how far you're willing to go to remain undetected, but overall, I think I did well considering my time efficiency mindset. If ever I return to this game in the future, I'm definitely working on making it through this mission without so much hesitation. I think this mission best suits Fisher as a prime example as to why he's the main guy for 3rd Echelon stealth operations. If you make it through this mission perfectly, odds are you're Sam Fisher in real life. Oh great, the moment I dreaded, email decryption. Emil needs me to decrypt the security on an email on an ally to ensure he's not being betrayed. Okay, I need to cheat here. The manual doesn't tell me shit, so let's see what Google says. Use logic. What? That's not an answer, that's a taunt. Okay, I finally decrypted the email, and I don't know how. Seriously, I was just trying to get the blue numbers all around the cube. But I feel like there's more to it than that, because it's pure luck if a number isn't used elsewhere that you're not aware of. I feel like this is how the Beatles felt when they first read the lyrics to Come Together. After this disastrous objective, I sneak around and find Enrique's lab, where I'm able to hack into her desktop and download the disarm code for the bomb we just planted. The other objectives are pretty boring. Obtaining visual proof of the bomb in HQ through security feed, fingerprint scanning, more personal data files to snoop through. Nothing major. I meet Emil back at the computer to hear his rather unamusing sigh of relief that he's not being betrayed, and we're at the moment of truth. I have complete control over how to utilize this bomb. I can detonate it, which is what Emil wants. Good for the mission, but bad for the men on board. I can block the detonator signal, which spares the men but puts both Enrique and I on the hot seat. Or, as a token of my efforts in stealing the disarm code, I can utilize it, which in turn paints Enrique as the sole proprietor to blame, since only she and Emil had access to this code. Obviously, the middle option is out of the question, because it does not benefit me, and I'm already at full trust anyways. I mean, the men survive, but it puts Sam's role in JBA in dark waters, and I'm able to prevent that with the disarm code. Blowing it up does nothing for me that I haven't already gotten, so what's the point? Framing Enrique, from a logical standpoint, is the best option here. It saves the men, maintains my standing with Emil, and besides, he's not so grumpy as to kill Enrique, right? Oops. Okay, I misread that entirely. But it's for the best in the long run, and deep down, I am certain Enrique would have preferred this anyways. Don't worry though, I played all three options for this part, and without a doubt, this is definitely the best choice to get the more satisfying ending to the game. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Rest in peace, Enrique. Your research will most likely be in vain, like you probably would have wanted anyways. This mission is unique in multiple ways. One being that Emil basically brought me here for no reason because he's telling me to stay behind. Now I can live with the game having a terrible ability of storytelling so long as the gameplay compensates for it, but this really hasn't done that either. I've enjoyed one mission immensely and one half-heartedly so far in this entire game. The rest have been fillers for me. So adding this as an excuse to dismiss the JBA from giving me objectives and acting like it makes sense is insulting to my intelligence. Remember this guy?
This is Hisham. Alejandro and Masoud are both here, along with your...
He wanted me to record the secret meeting from earlier. Guess what? He wants me to record another secret meeting between Emil and his partners to extract information on their plans with the Red Mercury. I'm still salty over the previous meeting recording being absolutely useless, so I'm already having second thoughts about another one. I sneak my way through the garage into the upper levels, and I see that I'm entering a war zone. The first portion is subtle enough to where I can sneak by without disturbing the enemies, but then I get to the roof, and that's where the war becomes intense. I know I said I'm a pacifist by nature, but now I'm in the red line. Can I make it through the rest of the level without killing anyone? Probably. Is it worth trying? Maybe. But should I, or rather, would I, if I were in Sam's shoes? I'd have to say no, I wouldn't try. This is kill or be killed, and I've got a meeting to attend. I think most Splinter Cell fans would agree in this situation. Sam Fisher has to utilize his Panther techniques. The ghost element is out. At least going Panther, I can maintain a stealth run. I'll just have some blood on my hands. So, goodbye to the ghost run. We're going Panther. I only take out enemies that are directly affecting my progress. This kind of reminds me of the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 4. Except in that game, the enemies were given the option of perceiving you as an ally, depending on how you engage the battle. That doesn't happen here. Both the rebels and the militias see you as a threat, no matter what you do. I make it to the shaft and shortly thereafter arrive at the meeting room. I wasn't recording when this happened, but there was a hilarious bug in this room where the game allowed me to shimmy across the inside ceiling on an invisible pipe. I had to restart the checkpoint in this section in order to get off of it. Anyways, I bypass the laser security, plant the mic, and the meeting begins. And once again, this meeting had absolutely no important information. They discuss Emil's demeanor, and then figure out my co-conspirator is a conspirator. Huh. So Emil demands to speak with me at the garage, forcing me to rush my way back through a shortcut. Emil orders me to assassinate Hamza. And now I'm really in a war zone. I don't have the higher ground advantage anymore, so my Panther run is going to be really tough, but I think I can pull it off. This is where I really need to point out why I like subtitles in games. Because of crap like this, that's why. Yeah, I can hear that Emil's saying something, but that's literally all I know, is that he's saying something. I'm getting really frustrated with the writing in this game. Seriously, I'm beginning to think the writers actually did have something better, but were forced to really simplify everything to meet a deadline. And so, to protest this, they demanded that subtitles be non-existent. It's the only way this makes any sense. I didn't think this one level would really expose the incompetence of the storytelling this much on its own, but here we are. There are a couple of optional objectives, such as stopping a civilian execution and rescuing a woman from a collapsed bus. I'm a sucker for these things, what can I say? I do them every time. Anyways, I'm forced to decide how I'm going to approach this Hamza situation. My objective is to snipe him from this tower. Killing him ends the mission immediately. No way. I mean, other than the fact that him living really doesn't jeopardize much in terms of my standing in the JBA or the mission as a whole, I refuse to allow this game to give me the bare minimum in story progression, that it's already screwed up enough already up to this point. So I shoot the rebel instead. After Lambert gives me a sigh of relief, Emil talks again. Yeah, blah blah blah. As I figured, Lambert actually gives a competent way of faking Hamza's death to appease Emil, blowing the place to smithereens with Emil convinced that he is captured inside. I'm impressed, actually. This was worth the stupidity from before. Sort of. I take out the rebels, escort Hamza to his extraction, and make Emil cream himself silly. Interesting mission in that it changed the formula multiple times. Getting past the first portion with the tank here was not easy by any means, but I maintained a no alert status, so I'm sure my end mission score will reflect that and make it all worth it, right? Oh, bite me, you piece of shit! Oh great, the moment we all knew was coming. Listen, this part is rather sensitive for some fans of the series, but not me, at all. You know why? Because the game had already primed me for this inevitable choice. Look, the teaser gives this away. It ends with Sam pointing his gun at Lambert and pulling the trigger. So my brain's already trained to do the same thing by default. Oh sure, I have done a playthrough where I shoot Washington instead, but that actually makes the ending to this already substandard entry even worse. I think the teaser was also giving us a signal here that Sam was already prepped for this moment as well. He doesn't even show any sort of regression in either the teaser or in the real-life gameplay. He knows he has to kill him. I know he has to kill him. The mission demands it. Lambert's down and the NSA intervenes, thus ending Fisher's official role in the JBA as far as both he and them are concerned. So now it's free reign. I get to kill all the JBA members I want. I can go anywhere and finish any secondary objectives I may have missed in the previous HQ missions, though, spoiler alert, it's really meaningless to do so. So now I need to scan the appropriate retinas to access the secret lower level where the Red Mercury is being stored. Washington's already descended with Emil, so they're out. So that leaves only one other option, the server crew. Sure enough, he has eyes, and sure enough, they are qualified for this elevator. At this point, I have no incentive to not kill anyone I see down here. Emil has a death wish anyway, and wants everyone else down here to grant it. Fine, I'll accommodate you all. The Red Mercury timer starts here. I take out the guards, but I wanted the satisfaction of getting Emil from behind. And I did. And I then remembered that this guy literally has no fucks left to give. Man, everything just went to shit so suddenly. If I didn't spare Hisham, frame Enrica, and kill Lambert, trust me, the ending to this game once I disarm the bomb is so frustratingly dull. It shows that the game truly did not appreciate your time. But making those specific choices grants the bonus map, which is a short run of a small boat carrying another bomb set to detonate on Ellis Island. The only real highlight is that you get to confront Moss, but even that is an automated sequence. There's no battle, not even a QTE. You sneak through a vent, grab him from behind, and the game does the rest. This game can go to hell. The game ends here. None of the endings are satisfying enough, because the game throws you into this scenario abruptly. When I got this bonus map, I was somewhat relieved, and then this happened. It's like they wanted this to be a cutscene, but the one developer said no, we need to make this somewhat interactive. So they said, okay, they can go through the vent, but that's it. What an insult. This version reeks of rushed incompetence, and it doesn't just show through the bugs that never got patched. I downloaded the PC version just a few weeks ago, and even though that version got one patch, it's still in a barely playable stage. Not to mention the screenshots used to show it off to the buyer before purchase are from the other version. Because you know, that one is indeed literally superior in almost every single way, like I've been saying this whole time. This sucks, because the times I actually enjoyed the game, I really enjoyed it. It had potential. What's even worse is that this version is what's considered to be the canon story, and as you've seen, it doesn't even know what it's doing half the time. I decided to play this because I remember playing it once and never touching it again. But I didn't remember why. I just remember that the other version that was released on PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox were far superior. And now I remember why. I'm sorry everyone, I really had no idea that this was what was in store for our ending, and that it was so abrupt. I cannot recommend this. If you have to play Splinter Cell Double Agent, I beg you to play version 2, and forget this one even exists. I don't want to give a rating or a grade or anything, as I don't feel this is a true review, but I think to compensate, I'll just be giving the games I cover in these videos the headline that I would be giving them if I were reviewing them. So, for version 1 of Splinter Cell Double Agent, available on PC, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3, I give this a headline of... just pretend this version never happened. Okay, that's it. That's the video. I hope you at least tolerated this enough to want another one. Odds are I will be covering the 2 sequels to this title in the future at some point, but until then, stay tuned. Until next time, play fearlessly, but fair.